Good morning. It's another day that I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about, and it took me till about 4:15 to make the decision. Anyway, the title is Because the Constitution Still Matters. As I spend another week preparing court documents in which I defend against unjust decisions and actions by courts colluding with banks in their attempt to steal homes using fraudulent methods, I am amazed that people actually tell me the Constitution does not matter, that it is an antiquated document with no bearing on modern life. Except for changes in the meaning of equality that have been corrected, it remains the foundation of freedom for the protection of individual God-given rights. It is still required by law and a practiced ritual for all public servants to swear an oath of allegiance. Why is that, when so much of what our government does is in direct opposition to the plain and simple truths set forth in the law of the land? My answer is simple: because the Constitution still matters, and we are being returned to constitutional law. Let me save the change I just made. Oh, indeed, yesterday I spent a good deal of time preparing documents in response to my friend's action in which they're trying to steal her home. And her home is owned by MERS. And MERS is the system that was developed by the bankers to avoid following the law. And there was a landmark decision passed down by Judge Grossman, I believe his name is. Yes, Robert E. Grossman of the United States Bankruptcy Court in Eastern District of New York. And he said, I'm reading from the document, I have 37 pages of his ruling and his decision. He says, the court recognizes that an adverse ruling regarding MERS' authority to assign mortgages or act on behalf of its members' lenders could have a significant impact on MERS and upon the lenders which do business with MERS throughout the United States. I'm skipping down. MERS and its partners made the decision to create and operate under a business model that was designed in large part to avoid the requirements of the traditional mortgage recording process. The court does not accept the argument that because MERS may be involved with 50% of all residential mortgages in the country, that is reason enough for this court to turn a blind eye to the fact that this process does not comply with the law. And while it's not only the constitutional issues that are involved here, there are statutory issues as well. My contention is that even mortgages, commercial mortgages, that are not MERS assigned do not comply with the law, because the law of the land, the law of contract, requires two signatures, and virtually no banks that I'm aware of, although my own bank, BB&T, the manager insists that they do sign every mortgage that they create, and I would be interested in actually seeing some of their mortgages. I don't have one, and I've never seen one, but she insists that they do follow that aspect of the law. She and I have had many conversations on this subject because she is also my notary on many of my documents, not all of them, but many of them. In any case, the idea that the Constitution doesn't matter and that the law doesn't matter is ridiculous. the law actually does, and especially the constitutional law, actually does protect our rights. And as I've said before, the Magna Carta started it, but even the United Nations Charter guarantees rights, believe it or not. It's in the code. It's in the commercial code. Our rights are there, but we don't know enough to defend against the abuses of the banks and of the government agencies that have been usurping our power, usurping our natural rights and our natural authority to live our lives as free men and women. They've been doing it for a long time, but the law is still undergirding and keeping it from going into total dictatorship. I don't care what Obama and the elite tries to do in establishing martial law. It can't be done lawfully. It cannot be done with any degree of foundational law backing it up, because the people have rights and the government derives its power and authority from the consent of the people, who have been ignorant. We have been ignorant, but we're waking up, and we are reasserting our God-given rights. We are taking back our birthright. That's what the One People's Public Trust is all about, that Heather created, and that is being the talk of many of the alternative internet programs nowadays. And more truth will come out on that. But the Constitution was flawed in that it was created in an era where slavery abounded and where men were still seen as superior to women. Those two issues have been addressed in more modern times, granting rights to all people regardless of race and gender and religious affiliation, etc., etc. Although the religion issue was actually settled at the very beginning, but the race and the gender issues took longer time for the Constitution to evolve, and those amendments to the Constitution are valid and need to remain in there because we are all equal regardless of all the things that have been used to divide people throughout the ages. So the Constitution was a product of the generation of its time, but those issues have been resolved and corrected, as I said. So the Constitution is still the bulwark document, the foundational document to protect us against the tyranny of government. And it's more meaningful now than ever. And as we saw with Obama's swearing in, he was actually sworn in on Sunday and again on Monday publicly, privately on Sunday and publicly on Monday. The president, even though he's the president of the corporation, still follows the procedures and the ritual, if you will, of the swearing-in ceremony to uphold and defend the Constitution. So does every congressman, every senator, every governor of every state, every policeman, every soldier, every attorney, every judge. They all have to swear an oath of office to uphold and defend the Constitution, not only of just the United States, but of the state, individual state in which they are taking that oath. That is true across the United States of America to this day in 2013. It's still true, and it still matters. And that's why all this Second Amendment issue of them confiscating guns, as I went back, even Gandhi and even the Dalai Lama support people's right to bear arms and defend themselves. And Gandhi says one of the greatest injustices in India was that the British confiscated the firearms of the Indian people when they were fighting for at the time when they were fighting for their freedom. That was a tremendous injustice from Gandhi's point of view. So don't give me the argument or try to make the argument that the Constitution doesn't matter and that bearing arms doesn't matter, because it does. And the arms have to be, there's one ruling, actually two rulings that I read in looking at these things recently, that indicate that the people's right to bear arms is proportionate to whatever the military and police have. It's proportional, because one of the rulings ruled that a shotgun, the right to own a shotgun, wasn't protected by the Constitution because the military and the police didn't use shotguns. And the ruling was that it had to be, if the government did it, the people had the right to do it too. It was on par with what the government uses. So whatever rule they want to make doesn't hold up. But I'm started out talking about confiscation of property. What they do, and I've noticed this, is they try to deny the people that are fighting for their homes due process of law. They use statutes and rules of court and rules of procedure to try to get the court to decide against the law to steal people's houses. I mean, I see it in the documents that I read from the attorneys, both I've read it in my own case going through the years, and the case of my friend that I'm helping to save her home. They say, well, she didn't follow this rule, or he didn't follow this rule and dot his I's and cross his T's in the exact proper way. So therefore, we want this stricken from the record. We don't want to answer these questions. We want to strike the affirmative defenses, strike the arguments of contract law, etc. Strike those things, because there's nothing we can do about them. We violated them, but we don't want to admit that we violated them. But we find these other places over here where they didn't do it exactly the way that we're supposed to do it as lawyers. That's the argument that they come up against, because they don't have arguments in point of fact based on the law. The law is not on the side of the theft of property. It is not on the side of banks. It is not on the side of the corporations. And it is not on the side of the government that when it behaves and acts in the capacity of a corporation. The law of the land remains the Constitution. And those rights are guaranteed actually in all countries. Although you may not understand that, this is the divine document, if you will. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights are the divine document to protect all people's rights and to reestablish freedom on earth. And as the One People's Public Trust points out, the corporations have been operating a slave trade. And they have created the human family as debt slaves, as human chattel, as dead, as considered dead. These are things that we need to be aware of. And the Constitution takes us back to the foundation of our freedom, the foundation of our God-given rights that protect us from the tyranny of government. And anybody that claims or wants to make the statement that it doesn't matter anymore, that the Constitution is an antiquated document, or as George Bush said, just a goddamn piece of paper. People that want to make that claim, and it's mostly liberals. It's mostly liberals that do that. And they don't think. They don't think through. They don't see clearly. They want to eliminate guns and eliminate the Constitution. They don't realize what that does. They don't realize the importance. I'm definitely conservative when it comes to the constitutional issues. I'm definitely on the side of the conservatives and against the liberals. I am. But I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a liberal. I'm the paradox man. I try to reason things out and look at things with a clear mind, accepting it all as part of me. Everything is part of me, and everything is mine. all the feelings that come up are mine. I am this body, and I am more. I am this mind, and I am more. I am my ego, and I am more. I'm always more. I'm always more than what appears, and so are you. And if we're going to establish freedom again, and we are, we must understand that the freedoms and rights guaranteed by the Constitution, they're not constitutional rights. They are rights that were given by God, but they're guaranteed in a contract. The Constitution is a contract, a legal binding contract between the people and its government. And it matters. It still matters. Think about these things and stop being crazy and stupid and saying that the Constitution doesn't matter. If the Constitution doesn't matter, tyranny cannot be avoided. But it will be avoided because of this powerful document known as the United States Constitution. Thank you for listening. Namaste.